So sometimes you will find that there are people in your life that every time you interact with them, you get a physiological response. They either create agitation in you, anxiety in you, a feeling of not being safe or understood or heard. And sometimes you ignore it because of their relationship to you, or you might want to maintain the relationship in some way. But basically, that feeling that keeps cropping up every time they interact with you, of feeling very agitated, on edge, anxiety, frustrated at the end of conversations, like, that is your body's way of telling you that this person isn't safe in your nervous system. There is something. It might be past history, it might be the actual nature of the relationship. For example, it could be a family member in which you've always had this relationship that's been inconsistent and that hasn't changed into adulthood. So every time you interact with them, you're like, oh, they always still make me feel like that. Or it might be somebody that dips in and out of your life, and every time they come back, you remember why you're not in contact because the interaction is frustrating for you. Or they might have let you down in the past, and so every time they come back, it's almost like you're waiting for the penny to drop again, or they interact in very inconsistent ways. So when they come back, you might be thinking, oh, which side am I getting? Oh, they're being charming, but underneath I feel unsafe. I feel like insincerity from them. I feel something off. That is your body communicating that this person is off for you. This situation is unsafe. And we often ignore that intuitive body response because we think, oh, it's not convenient for my body to scream that this person is like triggering me, or I don't feel comfortable with them, or they're stressing me out because I have to maintain a relationship. But it's really important, like after that interaction or whatever, that you reflect on, why does this person make you feel that way? And is this person worth having in your life? If it's a family member and it's a situation where you can't have them out of your life, how can you create boundaries so that when you interact with them again, it's not to this level, it doesn't create this response? And it is very difficult because our emotions are really deeply ingrained within our physiological responses. So if we feel stressed and agitated, we become defensive when we talk to people. If we feel really emotional and let down, we become emotional when we interact with people. So it's really about like having that pause in between them contacting you and your response. And it is very difficult. It's something that I train myself a lot with, not because I'm super reactive, but I'm emotionally reactive. I'm not like defensive or aggressive, but I am I can be emotionally manipulated to respond, I guess is the right way to say it. And I think that's quite common for a lot of us. We want to hear where this conversation goes. We want to take control over the conversation. And this kind of leads to another point that I wanted to mention, which is basically like, if you want to speak your truth with somebody, so these people in your life could be a really good example of where you don't need to get on your soapbox and say what's wrong with them, but sometimes you get to a point where you're like, I kind of need to voice how they make me feel, that they make me feel on edge, or I don't believe what they're saying, that there's insincerity there, or this doesn't work for me. When you say your piece with somebody, or you establish a boundary with somebody of this nature who has been inconsistent with you, has probably abused your boundaries before, you have to be in an emotional space to accept that they will not accept your boundaries, that they will retaliate in some way. So emotionally, they might try and keep the conversation going. They might try and reword the conversation. They might goad you into an emotional reaction. They might say that everything that you're saying is incorrect. They might try and pick a fight and pick holes in everything you're saying. You need to be in an emotional space where essentially whatever tactic they try, which they probably tried successfully in the past to get you to back down, to get you to play and engage with them, you have to be in a place where you understand that if the conversation ends in a way that you don't like, if they are reactive, if they're trying to push your buttons, you have to be in a place where you're like, okay, do you know what? That's fine. you do that. And that is a skill that takes time, because these people keep re-entering your life because it's been so difficult to establish that boundary with them. There's some kind of emotional hook there, which is fine. But it is a process. It takes time to be able to say, your reaction I'm indifferent to, because the whole point is you have such a visceral physical reaction to them. So it takes time, but I would say the first step is creating that pause in between them contacting you and you responding. And sometimes no response is your response. If that's a situation where you don't tolerate what they've said and you don't feel comfortable engaging, that's fine. But I think a lot of the times we end up down this rabbit hole where we've engaged and then it's spiraled, and you look back and you're like, why did I start this conversation with this person? Because I knew from the minute they popped up, or I knew from the minute they walked through the door, that they set my whole nervous system on edge, and I still engaged instead of reading that red flag that came from my body of like, go the other way. It's a skill set, because we can't always run away from the people that make us feel uncomfortable. We might have to maintain a relationship with them in some way. It could be a work colleague, it could be a family member, but it's about learning to hear that internal voice and that internal reaction and saying, okay, this person doesn't feel safe with me. How do I create that protective space inside me that when they engage with me, I can do it from a calm and collected place instead of a reactive place? It takes time, but it's a really important skill set, because your boundaries are important, speaking your truth is important, being calm and collected is important. It's about honouring that voice that says that this doesn't feel right, but doing it in a way that allows you, regardless of how they react to that, you can say your piece and not become emotionally entangled in it, to a place where you can move forward. And it does take time. But the first step, listen to the body, give space between them communicating with you and your reaction, and only respond from a place of calm. If you don't feel calm, don't engage, because you will end up down that rabbit hole of engaging and messaging, and then afterwards you'll be like, okay, I did this from an unhealed place, a reactive place. That's where I would say is the starting point for this kind of situation. So by all means, message down below if you've experienced this with people, and if you have any tips or tricks that you use to kind of deal with people in your life that are more difficult.